It couldn't have just had a dead spot like that. God don't have dead spots. All right? So I looked in carefully, and I took the names and got the meanings of the names. And let's see what's in Genesis 5. This is amazing. Hidden message in chapter 5. Now, it has a genealogy of 10 people. Only 10 people. I think to myself, well, there's got to be something there. Why would there was more people? Why do you only put 10? So, man, Seth means appointed. Enos means mortal. Cain means sorrow. Mahalel means the blessed God. Jared means shall come down. This are the meanings of their names. Enoch means teaching, because Enoch was a teacher. Methuselah means his death shall bring. You guys know about Methuselah? God said you would live until it starts to rain. He wanted to see the ark. He wanted to see the rain. So he lived long enough. And by the way, Methuselah was the oldest man in the Bible. Right? 969 years, right? Yet his father lived longer than him. How's that? What? Did you catch that? No?
Yeah.
How's that possible? Because Enoch never died.
Wow.
Then Methuselah's son Lamech means the despairing, or somebody who's grieved or despairing, okay? Noah means comfort or rest, right? So, let's read it through. Now we're just going to read the meanings of the names only. Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the despairing man comfort or rest. That's like,
that was awesome.
God, Lord, there's so much to you. What are we missing? What are we not seeing? Help me. Give me sight so I can see in your word, Lord.
That was awesome.
Isn't that something? Right? Just in the names. I figured these great stories are there, and in Genesis 5, there's nothing, just a 10-name genealogy. So I looked up the names, and it blew me away. I was so excited. It was like 1:30 in the morning, but I didn't want to call, wake nobody up. I'm texting people. Isn't that something? All right. So here's the thing. God has surprises for you. You gotta dig. He's got nuggets for you. But you gotta look. You gotta look. You gotta be curious. That's why I told you the when, who, why, what, where, how, observation, context. Why? Because I wouldn't have saw this if it wasn't for those basic tools. That's all I use, really. And then Strong's Concordance or the Bible programs. Simple. So, the Old Testament gospel, right? Because Jesus did come down and he gave us teachings that his death would bring this despairing man comfort and rest. Right? And there's more like that. They're all over the Bible. Okay. Who was the oldest man in the Bible? Methuselah says that Methuselah was 969 years and he died. Yet he died before his father. No, I already went over that. So, okay, now here we go. I won't hold you guys any longer. We're right there, right at the end. But I need you guys to pay attention just for a little bit more.
Okay.
Now, chapters 6 through 9 is the flood of Noah, which is after the genealogy we just read. Is the flood of Noah. Then you got the Tower of Babel. Then you got the call of Abraham. Then the call and service, right? And then the story of Isaac. Then the 12 tribes. And then you got the story of Joseph. But in Genesis 15, you know what I'm going to do? I know it's late, so look what I'm going to do. You guys trust me that I'm not going to make up the story, right? Instead of getting the Bible and going verse by verse, because that's going to take a long time. All right, so here's the thing. Genesis 15. God promised Abraham that his children would be as many as the stars of heaven. And then another time he said, as much as the sands of the sea. That you can't count, that's unnumberable, okay? And he used that twice But there's another meaning there, but I'm not going to get to that now. Okay, so he promised him that, but yet there was no offspring. So Abraham went to God and said, listen, I know you promised me, but nothing's going on. I don't know what is going on over here. So then God said, look, I'm going to make a covenant with you. Right. I'm not just going to tell you, but let's cut a covenant. Now, I'm going to explain to you what cutting a covenant is now. Okay. And we get the word today, let's cut a deal. That word comes from the ancient word to cut a covenant. Right. Now, to cut a covenant, this is what it meant. There was a lot of covenants in the Bible, but this covenant is unbreakable. Some covenants, like, let's say if me and Dorina made a covenant, and then I said, okay, listen, Dorina, a year or two later, 5 years, I got to break this covenant with you. I got to do my own thing. So I'm going to give you so much payment. No, you could have done this in the Old Testament. I'm going to give you so many sheep or goats and stuff like this. Say, okay. And usually it was written in a tablet, and we would break the tablet. So the covenant was done, and now I'm set free. I paid her. Or if she wanted to break the covenant, she'd pay me or whatever. That wasn't in the Old Testament. But when you cut a covenant, that meant ain't no breaking this one. This is eternal. Right? So here's what to do. If me and Dorina was going to make a covenant between us, whatever the covenant was, we would have to go get sacrifices. 1, 2, but it would have to be a big sacrifice. It had to be expensive. And we had to cut it down the middle. And we put it on the floor, the two halves next to each other. And all the blood would pool in the middle between these two sacrifices. Then me and Dorina had to hold hands, okay? And we would have to walk a figure 8 between the two pieces and step through the blood. And as we're doing that, we're pronouncing with our words, what is the contract, what's the covenant, and we have to walk a figure 8 between here. Because a figure 8, there's no beginning and no end. It's eternity. So that means this is unbreakable, and we're swearing on each other that if she breaks the covenant, or if I break the covenant, may my blood pool on the ground, and may my body be cut in half like this sacrifice. Wow. If I break it, or if she breaks it. Now that's what it meant to cut a covenant. So not many people would cut a covenant because it was one of those things, okay? So God tells Abraham in chapter 15, he says, let's cut a covenant. And Abraham says, okay, right? Who would better to cut a covenant with than God, right? To have his eternal word. So he says, okay, I want you to go get this kind of animal, this kind of animal. And Abraham was rich. He got all the animals, okay? The right year, the right one, the perfect ones. It wasn't just one sacrifice. It was like 4 or 5. And he went and he cut them. And he laid them down on the ground. And all the blood started pooling in the middle. But then something happened. Well, that's going on. It says that ravens, which is symbolic of demons, came down and tried to pick up the sacrifice and take it away. And Abraham had to shoo them away. So the enemy saw what was going on. He tried to stop it. He seen God's cutting a covenant with Abraham. Oh no, because that scarlet thread, remember the scarlet thread? It had to do with the scarlet thread that through his people Christ would come. And he's about to cut the covenant that he promises that that's going to happen. So the enemy tried to take the covenant away. Abraham shooed it away, right? This is all in Genesis 15. So then, right before they begin to go walk through the covenant together, it says that God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Abraham. Just like he did with Adam in the garden. The same words, if you look at it in the Hebrew, caused him to fall into a deep sleep. Just like he took Eve from his rib, was a symbol of when the blood flowed from Christ's ribs on the cross, on his side, the church was born. The woman, the church. You understand? You follow? So he caused Abraham to fall into a deep sleep. But something strange is going on here. Abraham is explaining what happened in chapter 50. It's Abraham's words, right? His story. But he fell into a deep sleep, but he continues to explain the story, which tells me he must have saw it in the spirit or something because he fell into a deep sleep. So the Bible says that God put him into a deep sleep, and God walked the figure 8 alone. That if Abraham and his seed mess up and break this covenant, may my blood pool on the ground. May my body be cut in half.
How major is that?
Now, when we get to the New Testament, if you guys stay here long enough, when we get to Luke chapter 19, where Jesus goes through Jericho, and he talks to a man named Zacchaeus, it's the fulfillment of that scarlet thread, was what he tells him. And then from there he goes into Jerusalem, gets on a donkey on Palm Sunday. He goes to die on the cross. The last person he visited was Zacchaeus, and he said, "You truly are a son of Abraham." That meant the fulfillment. Well, we'll get to that. But anyway, God swore in himself that if we mess up, which we did, we're sinners. We broke every covenant there is. Chalo del Sol Pipeste, that if we mess up, his blood's going to pool on the ground to pay for it. His body to be cut in half. And that's in Genesis chapter 15. Now in Genesis chapter 22, you got Abraham taking his son Isaac now, another symbol, on Golgotha to sacrifice him because God told him that. And it's a beautiful thing. If you read Genesis 22, he even puts the wood for the sacrifice on Isaac's back for Isaac to carry it, just like Christ carried the cross. What a wonderful story. So we're going to end it there because it's too late. We started a little late. Next week we're going to finish Genesis, and maybe we'll talk about Genesis 22. So